All right. Good evening, Latino Arts Foundation community. Welcome to another episode of our Latino Arts Festival on our virtual space this year. So we've been able to highlight a lot of our community artists, people who are excited about the work in Kansas City. And today it is my distinct pleasure. Before I do that, let me introduce myself. I'm Edgar Palacios. I am the board chair for Latino Arts Foundation. Deanna Munoz is taking a much-deserved break this evening. And so we're just making sure that our thoughts are with her tonight. But it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you our guest this evening, Sheila Johnson with Gangsta Goodies. How are you doing, Sheila?
I'm wonderful. How are you today, Edgar?
You know what? I'm a little hungry.
Yeah. Look, me too. I came home and cooked tacos really quick for my nephew and my granddaughter. So that's out of the way now.
So you made tacos?
Yes.
What kind of tacos? What are your favorite types of tacos?
Well, now my favorite type are jackfruit. I love jackfruit, chicken, steak. For them, I just did some plain old ground beef, nothing fancy. I didn't make any fancy slaw or anything like that to go with it. I love fish tacos too.
Okay. Good. Well, yes. I can't wait till one day I get invited to come in and join you for a meal.
Yes, you'll have to do that. Yes. Teach me one of your grandmother's dishes to make.
You know, I was talking to somebody earlier in the week about how one of my favorite meals is one that my mom makes spaghetti. So she'll do pasta. She'll boil pasta and then she'll put ketchup. And then craft Parmesan cheese, and then that's it. And you cook it in butter and that's it. Now, people might think it's a little gross. I think it's one of the best meals that I've ever had. So,
I'm sure it is because it's cooked with all that love from your mom.
I hope.
Yes.
So for those of our in the community that may not be familiar with you, Sheila, let us know who you are and let us know a little bit about what you'd love to do.
Okay. Sheila Johnson. I am born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri. I am a product of the Kansas City, Missouri School District. I graduated from Northeast High School way back, not too far back, but 1986.
That's come on now.
No, not that long ago. And my education, my higher education is from Rockhurst. I have a bachelor's degree in organizational leadership.
Nice.
And my master's, I have an MBA with a focus in marketing.
Are you all from Rockhurst as well?
Yes.
We share the Rockhurst MBA. So
yes,
I'm a family.
Nice. Did you have Professor G for your stat class, quantitative analysis? Gartland, Professor Gartland?
No, I did not.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Oh.
That class.
So I got to tell you, my professor of statistics was an adjunct.
Really? Okay.
So we had the benefit of knowing what was going to go on the exam.
That is
awesome. I don't know if that's public information or not, but we worked through all the issues and we figured out how to do that work.
Right. Yeah, so we're fellow alumni. That's awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm a big fan of the school, so I'm glad that we get to be in community together this evening.
Yes, absolutely. So we do, I remember years ago, a friend of mine said, Sheila, if you could do anything you wanted to do, your dream job, what would it be? And I said, and this was probably about 17 years ago, maybe. And I said, you know what? I would invite people into my space, whatever that space is. I would first of all feed them and connect them to information and resources and programs. And we'd have a good time and I'd make money doing it. And so here we are, all those years later. And so the show allows me the opportunity to invite people into my space. We cook together. We eat together, and then I have an opportunity to interview them. And more often than not, the guest has something to give back to the community, whether it's a nonprofit organization or just information on where the resources are in our community. So that's what I do.
That's incredible. Tell me a little bit more about some of your favorite conversations that you had thus far, or maybe some terrible conversations, but some excellent meals.
Yes. So, it's really interesting because the studio is in my home. And so it makes it a very personal kind of experience. And so I really, I rely a lot on the spirit to guide me on who to ask, and I watch people for a while, see how they're engaging with people on social media, how people are responding back to them. And then, I light my candles and, I put the names out there. I mean, and the spirit really guides me on who to, because it is my home, and so
and you got to be protective of who you invite into your home too, right?
You have to be very careful, and so I can honestly say I have never had an uncomfortable experience or one that was odd or, never, and so some have been, of course, more lively, more energetic, or, maybe more interesting to some, of the viewers, but it has been I am fed and I learned something every single time we tape an episode, even the episode that once the technical difficulties, we figure those out, we probably won't post until after the Chiefs game. I'm not there yet, Edgar. I can't compete with the Chiefs yet.
Oh no. I mean, it seems like this COVID-19 space is kind of like democratized
Yeah.
for those this virtual space as well. And so like you're able to connect with the community in a very different way.
Very different. Yes. And so my cousin, so September is Lymphoma Awareness Month, and I live with a very rare type of lymphoma, cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, and he was diagnosed with one about a year ago, a different type of lymphoma, but still a T-cell type of lymphoma. And so we talk about his diagnosis to his healing. And so because the type he has, there is a cure for it. And so there are things about his journey that I didn't even know that I learned. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, for example, he was stage 3.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I didn't realize that. And so it's always it's a very fulfilling experience, for me. And we do this, Edgar, because we believe that being in the kitchen and cooking together and eating together and talking, that it has a unique way of bringing families and communities together one meal at a time. So that's why we do it.
I love it. Before I ask you the next question, just a quick pivot to welcome Deanna into the space. Hey, Deanna, good to see you. We're excited to be here and representing the Latino Arts Foundation today. So thanks for giving us the opportunity in the space and platform. Meals. When you break bread together, magical things happen, right?
Yes, it does.
You talk about healing a lot. Tell me about like how do you utilize food or that conversation or that connection to heal folks? Like what are some of the healing experiences that you've seen because of
welcome back.
So here's what, and when I say, because healing is it, we come, and I'm just gonna, especially as African American and Latinos, we live in a space that it was not designed for us. And because it was not designed and created with us in mind, the policies, the systems, and all of that, it then puts us at a disadvantage. And that oftentimes trauma comes along with that, And so we have to find ways to heal from that trauma, and to move forward so it does not continue to hold us back or be a barrier, that sort of thing. And so I think that just talking, I remember, growing up, the kitchen and the kitchen table was a place of family, it was a place of unity. And it is the first place where, my brothers and I, there's just 3 of us, and so my brothers and I learned how to work together as a team in the kitchen, around the kitchen table, and those relationships were built. And so even though, tough times may come, because we built those relationships, we have something to fall back on. And so we just go back and, and get those. And even now that my mother has transitioned on, it is, my mother cooked with love. She worked 12 hours a day, and Edgar, I don't remember. I'm sure we may have, but I don't ever remember my mother not taking the time to feed us a home cooked meal every day, and that's a lot to be said for a single mom, to be able to, to do that. And we didn't eat on paper plates. It wasn't none of that, so that meant, okay, mom cooked.
I gotta say, there's I love eating off paper plates and drinking out of paper cups because I don't have to do dishes after the food. So I'm a practical person. I don't want to do the dishwasher stuff. I don't want to have to do dishes. And so for me, although that's probably not as carbon friendly as it possibly could be.
Well, as long as it's paper, it's those foam ones that aren't that great, but the paper is going to recycle. Yes.
Well, there you go. You're absolutely right. I completely forgot about recycling too. So there's remember.
Yes. I think that if we're just in, we're in that constant communion with each other, it allows for when things do happen, in our families and in our communities, it just allows us the opportunity to, to mend and to, and to talk through those things and not be foreign to us.
Absolutely. No, I love how beautiful you're making this sound and just in the inspiration that comes behind it. You also, you talk about never missing a home cooked meal, and that reminds me a lot of my parents and their journey as immigrants into this country. Didn't know we were poor growing up, right? Like that for me, that was my experience. We always had food on the table. Although I will say, when I was 15 and got my 16, when I got my first job, I remember telling my mom specifically, I'm like, I'm never going to eat rice and beans ever again. Now that I have my own cash flow, I'm going to get all the McDonald's that I ever want, and it's going to be great.
Right. You had no idea. Not being able to have those things they were precious, and we didn't even realize that. And right. Like you, Edgar, I tell people, and I grew up in one of the housing projects here in Kansas City, right off of between 9th and 12th and Woodland, and I didn't realize I grew up in the projects. I didn't know that, and I didn't know that by the way our home looked, the pride that my mother took in it, and just how we lived. I had no clue. And that we were poor. I didn't know that.
I agree. I didn't think I realized that until a little bit later in life.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Oh, that's why there were so many people that lived around us.
Right. That explains the staples too, right? It explains rice and beans. It explains having some type of meat at every, and the portioning of food, right? I think that to me is what I remember. But to your point, my parents never let us go hungry, and they always figured out a way. So I'm grateful for that and grateful for their sacrifices on that. Quickly, Lori, good to see you. Well, good to see your picture on here. No paper plates. I don't know, Lori. I disagree. Paper plates. They're there for a reason.
Now when my grandkids and stuff come over, I'll do some paper plates, but just generally, I'm not going to feed my peeps in a paper plate.
I appreciate that. I can respect that. I think that sitting down in a nice table setting, right?
Another segment. Today we're going to
feel good about that. That I totally understand and appreciate that. So, yes. Tell me where you're headed next.
So one of our goals with the show is that, and I say this all the time, is that you look up and you're going to see Gangsta Goodies Kitchen on a major network, whether that's Netflix, Hulu, the OWN network, and so that is, that's one of the goals is that we do that even here locally, on a PBS or, something like that. And so Rachel Ray is a great example of how that can happen. And she started in her hometown, on her PBS show, and look at her now. And, she has her now. I can't tell you how many pieces of Rachel Ray cookware and stuff and serveware that I have. And so that's my vision for Gangsta Goodies. We call it Gangsta Style.
I love it.
And so it's everything for the home. And you know what? And I'm like, if Rachel Ray can do it, I can too.
What was the inspiration behind the name Gangsta Goodies?
So I'm glad you asked that because, Edgar, as you can imagine, using the word gangsta and being a Black woman, okay, it's like, okay, now what's that all about? And actually I had my food mentor said to me early on, he said, Sheila, that name, you're going to put yourself in a box, and you're going to scare major brands and, and on and on and on and on. And I'm like, look, if Chrysler can do some work with Snoop, come on now. You can't tell me that they're scared of major brands. No, they're not. They're not scared of that name. Okay. So so what we do is we take the word gangsta, that definitely carries a negative connotation, and we flip it. And so I'm going to read to you really quick how we define a gangsta in the Gangsta Goodies Kitchen. And it is definitely not, the traditional sense. And I said to him, I said, you know what? I said, I was a single mom. I went back to school, started with my associates, then I got my bachelor's and my master's, graduated with a 3.82 GPA, working full-time, dance coach at my oldest daughter's school, PTA president at my other daughter's school. I said, if that ain't a gangsta, I don't know what is. Okay, that's a gangsta. The other component to that, Edgar, is that when I think about, because our target market are women who are childbearing age, between the ages of 25 and 44. And I look at what are they watching? Okay. And so what do they like? How can I reach them? And so, cooking with Sheila, that's nice. That's cute. But they're watching Atlanta Housewives. Okay. They're watching, Black Ink and, and all of that kind of stuff. So I felt like we needed a name that would grasp their attention.
Yeah.
And then they go, oh, okay, she's talking about cooking. And she's talking about this boys mentoring program that I could send my son to, and so that it was kind of the whole idea behind it. But this is how we define a gangsta. A gangsta is an individual who stops at nothing to achieve his or her goals. A person who is constantly on the grind. A gangsta works for everything. A gangster is not of average intelligence, because in most cases, a gangster has had to rise above what society has expected based on the environment in which one was raised and or lives. That's a gangster.
I love it. I remember just similar. I tend to use the word hustler a lot. Like I hustle for things. I hustle for money. I hustle for work. Right? I hustle.
Yes. Yes. I'm a hustler too.
I remember a gentleman at Hallmark. I was meeting him for the first time, and I mentioned him like, I love the hustle. I love doing this. I love doing that. And he was like, maybe I wouldn't use that term in corporate America. And I said, why? It describes what I'm doing, right? Like, I don't know what your negative connotations are around it, but also like there is this other side of the word, right? Where like you're looking for the opportunities, you're looking at how to make impact, you're looking right. You understand business, you understand all these other things, and so reclaiming some of these words and also like pushing back and saying like, I don't care how you define it, it's what it means to me, and the community that I serve is going to connect to it. And so
absolutely. Yep. I agree. It's, we define that, and that's what I often say too, is that for so long we have allowed them to define us and tell our stories. And it's time out for that. We have to tell our own stories, and those words and those stories mean something totally different to us than it does, popular culture. And that's okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm bringing some folks into the conversation. We got Luis Estrada. Luis, thank you so much for joining us. Ramen as a survival culinary art. Thoughts?
I love it.
Ramen is gangsta. So what's your relationship with ramen?
So now the funny thing is, now if I'm gonna have ramen, I like, to go to, one of those fancy ramen places. Now, but my granddaughter, on the other hand, she's like, Gigi, don't forget to go get me some ramen noodles. And then she does all kinds of stuff with them. And so she will cook a chicken breast or get some shrimp and season it. She never uses the seasoned packet that comes in it, but she does all kinds of, adds different like chili paste, adobe seasoning, just all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, that's pretty good. And so it's, it is something that being a busy mom that I always had on hand for my girls, because that way I knew if I didn't cook, because see, when they were growing up, I didn't really cook the way my mother did, and so they always had something, that they could eat, and they just took it and, made it something, more pleasing to their palate. But I do like ramen. I do.
Ramen, like ramen and tomato soup. I don't know why, but if I ever get a little bit of hungry and like I don't want to spend a lot of time, I remember like just making some tomato soup from the can.
Okay.
Throwing an egg in there and then throwing ramen.
Okay.
Ramen in there. Another
wow.
meal.
No. I've never had it with tomato soup like that.
Well, next time I'm on your show, I'm going to go ahead and just create that for you.
Okay, you're going to have to do that. And I love tomato soup. So,
It's so good. I'm interested. So when you think about like your perfect meal, what does that include?
So if I were going to cook or you were over here and I was going to fix you something, I would probably fix you some fish. I absolutely love golden pompano. And I'll tell you, I learned how to use banana leaves. My youngest daughter was the first graduating class from Crystal Ray. And so amazing program. And I learned how to use banana leaves. I'd never even seen banana leaves before. And so one of her friends' grandmother, and I want to say they were from Venezuela. I'm not 100%, but she had brought, we would have, families would bring meals, when we have meetings and stuff. And I'm like, what is that? What is in that? And so she explained to me how the banana leaf locks in the moisture and then the extra oomph of flavor that it gives. Oh my God. So I would grill you a really good piece of golden pompano wrapped in a banana leaf.
Okay.
And probably some asparagus, maybe some black beans and rice, or, that's probably what I would cook for you.
What are we having for dessert?
Probably a cocktail.
Okay. Fair enough.
Now, the funny thing is I'm not a dessert eater. I am strictly savory.
Savory. Okay.
Yes. And so for me to eat a dessert is like, it's extremely rare. And I may just take a bite or two and that's it. But I do know the one dessert I do know how to make is a pecan pie. So I'd make you a pecan pie. Okay. Yes.
You know what? Let's make this happen.
Yes.
I don't know if you have like minutes, but I can be over there in like 20.
Yes. And I've got some golden pompano in the refrigerator too.
It sounds so good. I really appreciate the energy and the life that you bring into this conversation. And I always love to see somebody walking in their purpose and like it radiate the radiation of like the energy that comes out of that. So you mentioned Rachel Ray as well.
Yes.
Who are some of your other chefs that you like either nationally or even locally? Who do you admire? Or who do you follow?
So, the interesting thing is I don't follow a lot of them. B. Smith. B. Smith is, if I had to compare her, she would be the African-American version of Martha Stewart. And she actually passed away last year. And so B. Smith, and it was everything. Like you see, Rachel Ray does everything B. Smith did too. The platters, the this, and all of that, cookbooks, all of that. So I'm a huge fan of B. Smith. And here locally, there are a couple of chefs that I absolutely love. Chef Shervin at Mesob. Have you ever been to Mesob?
Mesob used to be a staple in my life, and then they moved into the new location, and so like I went there once, and they were kind of still trying to figure it out.
Yes.
Yes. Ribs.
Yes.
Their plantains.
Yes.
Their oxtail.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm all for all of that.
Yes. And so Chef Shervin is one of my favorites. Chef Shanita and Chef Anita. And I'll tell you something that Chef Shanita, she used to have a restaurant here called Magnolia's Soul Food Bistro. It was a beautiful, beautiful.
I remember that close to the filling station, I think on Cherry, right?
Yes,
Yep.
yes, absolutely. And so one of her areas of focus is, food disparity and helping to make sure that people who need the food can get the food. And so during this pandemic, during the day, I work with senior citizens. I'm what's called a service coordinator. And so I help develop programs and services, to help, them age in place, and connecting them with outside resources, and that sort of thing. And so during this pandemic, she called me and she says, hey, she said, I'm working with Canby's Market, and we are trying to identify needs. And I know that you work with seniors. And when I tell you, her and the people over at Canby's Market, every week, and I have 3 properties, that I serve the seniors at, every week, since this pandemic, they are bringing food to help ensure that, first of all, they're seniors so that they don't have to get out if they don't need to get out, and just a way of supporting them in that area, and there's so much to be said for that. It's because these aren't like huge conglomerations, these are small businesses that are impacting, their communities that way. And so she's an amazing young woman. She really, really is. And her and the people over at Canby's, I can't even thank them enough, for doing that. Let's see who else. Now I have a couple of chef friends who are not in Kansas City, and actually that I've never met before, but the work that they do is phenomenal. There's a gentleman in the Atlanta area, Jerry Lawrence. He makes his own sausages.
Okay.
And so, but he has a little farm, and so he grows the animals, the herbs, the vegetables that go in it, and all of that. I'm like, oh my God. It is just amazing, the talent that's out there. Absolutely amazing. So there's several of them. I can't think off the top of my head. There's a young lady in Central Florida, Chef Tamar, who is Jamaican born, and she just launched her frozen food line. I said, how many Black women are launching frozen food lines, and in the middle of a pandemic,
right?
And so she and I are we're going to do the first, because I've never done shows like virtually.
Yeah.
And so I never even thought about it until now. Of course, the pandemic makes us shift. And so now I know I can do a cooking show with anybody, anywhere, and so,
it's one of those opportunities that, I think obviously a lot of downside to COVID-19, a lot of struggle and strife. But also there's these like silver linings of, it expands our world, particularly making StreamYard and all these other tools that are out there.
Yes, it certainly does. It really does. So yeah.
Luis has a question. Do they make chorizo though?
Oh my God. When I tell you the best chorizo, it is. Now I'll tell you, if I can't get his chorizo, I will go to San Antonio Market up on Independence Avenue and get their chorizo.
That's just up the street from where I live. So I go there at least once a week.
I love them. Oh my God. The fresh tortillas, all of that, poblanos, whatever. Yes. The meat that's already seasoned. I love that.
It's so good. They got some phenomenal, the steak and the meat, and like it's easy to just put on the grill and call it a day.
Exactly. If I want oxtails, that's where I go. Because you can't even, a lot of grocery stores don't have fresh meat markets.
Right.
You got to buy it frozen. And actually after my diagnosis, I try not to buy anything that's frozen.
Yeah.
Because there's a little extra preservative in there that I could probably do without. So being able to go to San Antonio's and get meat that's fresh, I absolutely love it. I love them.
So we talked about dinner.
Yes.
What do you like for breakfast?
I do not eat breakfast. I know it's
what? How do you not eat breakfast?
It is I'll tell you what I do the few times if I wake up and I'm hungry, I will go to the little gas station.
Okay.
Down by my house, and there are 2 Latino women in there. And when I tell you they hook up that burrito with that steak and the potatoes, and it smells so good. That's what I'll do I'm a brunch kind of girl. I like brunch. And
okay.
So, in a variety,
Where are you going in Kansas City?
Brunch, I'm gonna go. Oh my God. Shoot. I'm gonna go to Soiree. I'm gonna go to the Char Bar. I'm gonna go to the Press Penny.
Okay.
I'm gonna go to Harvey House in Union Station. Bristol's. Oh gosh. Where did we go just a couple of weeks ago? Oh, Red Door. Red Door has a nice brunch. Red Door. There's one over in Brookside.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about Denny's? How does Denny's play into this conversation?
Well, I'm not a Denny's kind of girl.
They got phenomenal pancakes, is all I know. But
And you know what? That's what my granddaughter says too. One day she was like, she wanted some pancakes. I'm like, I don't know what we're gonna do about that. She says, well, I can Grubhub or whatever it's called. She said, I can order some pancakes from Denny's. I'm like, you're gonna order pancakes from Denny's? And she's like, yes, Gigi. I'm like, okay, hey, you're gonna eat those, not me.
Oh man. I want to thank again our community for joining us today with our conversation with Sheila Johnson with Gangsta Goodies. Feel free to ask questions in the comments. We'll raise up your comments and your questions and make sure that we get those answered as well.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us for the virtual festival for the Latino Arts Festival here. Have you tried Ollie's?
I have not.
Martini Corner?
I have not tried them. What'd you think?
I went on a chicken and waffles kind of like adventure for maybe 2 summers ago, and I went every weekend throughout the summer. I would go out for brunch, and I would go and try the chicken and waffles somewhere. And
okay.
So they have their waffles are fantastic. They put some basil in it. I think they have some talking about savory. Waffle. A little syrup on there too, a little butter. So good.
Okay.
If you're another brunch spot for you, if you're interested.
I like chicken and waffles. When I cook them, and actually Chef Shanita is going to teach me how to make her sweet potato waffles.
Okay.
But I want to do it with jerk chicken. So you got a little bit of sweet, a little bit of spice. Yes.
I think I've had that combination, I think somewhere in Atlanta.
Okay.
I love the combination.
Yes. So yeah, I love chicken and waffles. Yes. I'm a chicken kind of girl too.
Pat, how's it going? Thanks so much for joining us today. Let us know your favorite breakfast food, Pat. Let us know what you like to eat. As you think about Kansas City 10, 15 years from now, specifically like in the food kind of environment, like what do you hope for our community? What do you hope that you see more of on our plates and on our dining room tables?
I hope to see more ethnic food, and that it is more mainstream, that we don't have to, dig for it, because when you talk about flavor, I don't think nobody can touch ethnic food when it comes to flavor. It just, that it is not a, and I think for me because I am such a foodie, I am always interested in what do the people eat. When I go on my girlfriend trips, we literally decide where we're going to stay, they're like, okay, Sheila, these are the places we like. But we know that the food is very important to you. And so we're going to let you do your research. And then whichever one of those that has the best food for you, then that's where we end up going. And that's where we end up staying, because you learn so much about the people through the food. It's an easy way. And it's an easy way to connect with people, and one of my personal goals is outside of Gangsta Goodies, but is that I become the Anthony Bourdain of Africa. He went through a lot of Asian countries and, places that nobody ever heard of. And what did he do? He taught us about those cultures through their food.
Yeah.
And so that is one of the things that's on my list to do, is that I become that, and nobody's doing it, and it should be done, and there's hundreds of countries, on the continent of Africa. Let's learn about them. Let's learn about their food, and their cultures, because that diversity is important, And one of the things I learned about, so there's a dish called jollof rice. Okay. And so it is a West African kind of dish, but you know what it's similar to? Paella. Paella.
Okay.
It's basically, the cooking methods are basically the same. I mean, it is amazing. So what that says to me is that there is a definite connection between those cultures.
Absolutely. I think it's I think a lot about Indian culture and curries and those flavors and those spices, and then how similar they can be to some of the Latin American countries out there as well. And then Arabic food and just the flavor. I mean, like, and the same kind of, sauces and tahine and all these other things that are out there. So we're definitely connected more than we sometimes think.
Exactly. One human race. If we could everybody could get on that page, it's just one human race, and we're all interconnected.
So I'm going to push you on this.
Okay.
What's the worst cuisine out there? Like, if you never had to eat it again, what would you not eat again?
Well, I will tell you what I have never eaten. Simply because of the way it looks and the way it smells. And it's something that's very popular in African-American soul food, traditional, and that is chitlins. Do you know what that is?
I do know what chitlins are.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm not eating that.
Really?
No. No, the smell alone, and my mother being from the South, oh my God, I mean, holidays, and I'm like, it looks like it can't be good for consumption. It just can't be. No, thank you. It's not going to happen.
I feel the same way about chicharrones. Just like the pork fat that's like fried and
Wait a minute, you don't eat those? They're like chips, you kind of eat them like you would potato chips.
I'm like,
I will tear them up. Yes.
Something about it, unless it's like part of a vigorón. Have you had vigorón? Which is a salad with chicharrones and maybe some meat. I could be wrong.
Okay, no, I haven't.
Oh, you need to try it.
Ooh. You know what's funny is that just last night, when my my daughter got ready to leave, but she was going to go to the store first. I said, hey, you're going to go down to the gas station? I said, bring me some cracklins back. Or some skins. We call them skins. Mama called them. And she's like, okay, which do you want, cracklin or skins? I said, give me skins. I said, the hot kind or the barbecue. On my nightstand is a half bag of skins.
I feel the same way about plantain chips. And so with a little bit of garlic on there, a little bit of salt.
Yes. I like plantain chips too. Those are good. Yes.
Just
yes.
That's it. What cities do you think have the best culinary arts?
Let's see. I will tell you, and this is my favorite place to visit in the States, and that is San Diego. And actually, my plan is to, in about 2 to 3 years, is to move to San Diego.
All right.
The best food. Oh my God. I mean, just the food, everything is fresh. And that is where I begin to learn the difference in, when it comes to Latino food, it's different. There are some areas where there's a lot of seafood. There's some areas where there's hardly no seafood, and so I'm like, oh, there's a difference. And yes, I mean, this one particular restaurant, I can't think of the name of it, but the brick ovens where the ladies are there making that fresh tortillas right there in front of you. They come out of that oven hot.
They do.
Oh my God. I'm like, can I have some of those to go?
I got to tell you, tortillas are interesting for me because my family's from Nicaragua, and so their tortillas are they're corn, but they're fluffy and they're thick. They're thick and fluffy, and they're significantly bigger than like your street taco tortillas.
Okay.
So I remember growing up on that, and that was my version of tortillas. And then one day, I'm going to like a Mexican restaurant. I'm ordering tacos, and I'm expecting to get the tortilla. I was really confused by the small little tortillas that they had out there.
Wow. Okay.
That was even a thing. I thought, like, what kind of
what's going on?
I was like, what kind of Americanized version of this is? And that tells you a little bit about the diversity within our own community of what how we eat, and what we how we experience food, right? And how do it's a beautiful thing to be able to see our diversity like play out in the dishes.
It is. It really is. I have a friend who is, when I was a little younger, we used to go, oh my God, every week salsa dancing. Okay. And bachata, you know what? I put on my Latino girl shoes when I'm out there with the bachata, okay? And it would be so interesting because he's from the Dominican. And so people would just automatically speak to me in Spanish. And I'm like, I don't. And so, I'm like, do they think I'm Latino? He said, yeah, they do. And he said, but he is the one who taught me how to dance. And what he said to me was, he said, watch the women and watch their hips. He said, I can teach you the foot motions, but I can't teach you how to swing your hips the way they do. He said, all you have to do is watch them. And he's like, we're all one people. It's going to come back to you. You'll get the flow of it. And when I tell you, you couldn't tell me nothing.
Let me ask you, I'm going to ask you a personal question now.
Yes.
Did he ever cook for you?
He did not ever cook for me. He didn't know how to cook. That's
why he's no longer your friend, huh?
But even in those situations of going dancing, he would say to me, now that person is Cuban, that person is from, Venezuela, that person is from Brazil. And I'm just like, wow, and it was a great learning experience for me, but everybody was there under that one roof. And when that music turned on,
it was a good old time.
It was a good time. Yes, absolutely.
I love it. I love it. I think it's a good reminder to think about how our communities intersect and how just the richness of our cultures, of our food, of our music, of our dancing, like of the arts, right? We're talking about art.
Art, yes.
How they unify as a people, and how they create understanding and awareness in ways that other things can't. What is your biggest pet peeve? You invite somebody over for dinner.
Let's see.
What is there one thing that they might do that would bother you?
The one thing that they could do that would bother me is if they pick their teeth at the table.
Okay. Is that like a common occurrence?
It's not, but it's like, you should probably excuse yourself to do that. But
Like, you have toothpicks on the table, like it's just there for the asking, right?
well, I don't. So, and I don't even use toothpicks. I prefer dental floss. So they both with their own toothpicks.
I love it. Well, Sheila, as we begin to wrap up our conversation, what are some things that we may have not covered tonight that you want to make sure that our community is aware of?
Well, I want, and I say this all the time, that when we figure out that, I'm gonna tell a little story. So when I went to Puerto Rico for the first time, we were on this tour bus, and so someone asked, "What are Puerto Ricans? How do you get a Puerto Rican?" And so she gave us a little history, and she talked about the Mayans, and she talked about the slave trade. And she said, so when you get all that together, she said, you get Jennifer Lopez. And so for me, that meant that, again, it goes back to we are one people. And I think when the Black and the brown, when we really figure that out and tap into that, we'll be a force to be reckoned with in this nation.
I agree. I'll ask you this though, for those that are watching that may not understand the conversations between Black and brown folks, what do you think some of the challenges are that our community faces that prevent us from unifying and coming together and really demonstrating our power as a people?
I think that our society has done a great job at keeping that division there. And so, even in conversations, when I have had conversations with some of my friends about immigration and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I said, them as our people, right? I said, you do know that, right? So what they're doing to them, they're doing to us. And so when we sit back and we don't get involved and we don't use our voice to speak out against it, we're allowing it to continue to happen. We have a responsibility. We're the same people. I said, think about this. Some of the rituals, some of the food, some of the traditions, it's all the same. And so I think our society, and I think it's intentional, that division is there, that the focus is on all the things that are different, which really ain't that many, versus the things that we have in common. Yeah. And so it is, I remember one of my family members asked me, with my youngest daughter going to Crystal Ray, she said, why'd you send her to school with all those Latino people? And I said, what are you talking about? Why wouldn't I send her to school there? What difference does it make? I like the program. Mm-hmm. I like what the program is going to offer. And I really like that the program is geared towards Black and brown children, period. Mm-hmm. And so we have to, I think there's work on our end, just kind of how, and I was saying too, is that just how we don't want our white counterparts to be, we ain't got time to educate them. Come on. You Google it. Okay. And so we have a responsibility to do the same thing. You want to know about the Latino community and culture? Google it, research it, find out, explore, get engaged.
To that point, I think a lot of people would be surprised. One statistic that I keep ready is that 25% of Latinos also identify as Black, right? And it's important that we recognize that. It's also important that we do some work on our end as a community, because there are some issues around anti-Blackness, some internalized oppression that we have as well, community that we can discuss, that I think prevents us also from coming together and really showcasing the fullness of our power. As well. And so I appreciate kind of extending the hands, right? Like making the food, offering the food, and offering the invitation to come over and join and commune, right? I think that is so important. I I'm in awe of your energy. I'm in awe of your light. I'm in awe of your dream.
Aww.
I'm so excited for you. I think that I can't wait to to see you nationally syndicated.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Yes.
I talked to her first.
Yes, absolutely. That's it. Yes.
But also, I can't wait to break up some bread with you and eat a meal with you and enjoy and and talk and get to know a little bit more about you in just that space, because
we're gonna have to do that. And did you get your cards out?
Well, that's what I was about to. You. So you know that on Tuesdays, is that tomorrow? I don't know. Do we do this on Tuesdays? I think Tuesdays we're now doing tequila, taro, and tacos, even though we don't ever do the tequila and tacos. So we just end up doing taro. But you've been watching, I think.
I'm like, I'm gonna have to come in so I can I haven't had a reading in a while.
Okay, well let's figure out what question do you have for the cards tonight.
So my question would be, okay, so what should I be focusing on? Where should my focus be?
Food. All right, let's find out. You got reverse 8 of Wands.
Okay.
So I think it's acknowledging a couple of things. It seems like you might be in a place of frustration.
Okay.
It's like you might be in a place where that you want to move forward in certain areas, but you're still waiting for that one thing that's gonna push you into that one direction.
Okay.
So I think it's acknowledging some of that.
Okay.
Also, you have the Queen of Pentacles, and the Queen of Pentacles. Pentacles is about coins, and coins is about money. You know what I'm saying?
And I got the Queen of Money.
The Queen of Money. Typically, when you get one of the what do you call this? The court cards.
Okay.
It's an acknowledgement of who you are.
Okay.
In this space, and so as a queen, it's interesting. Let me just make sure I give you the right terminology.
Okay.
Resourceful person. Fertility, not necessarily in giving more kids, but also in birthing new ideas, putting into action a lot of the goodness. And then let me see. Ooh, 6 of Cups.
Uh-oh.
You know what?
You just gonna have to come over for dinner, and then we're gonna have
Your next step.
What's my next step?
You need to gift your energy, your talents. You need to share with the world. I know you're feeling frustrated right now because it feels sometimes like you're trying to communicate and nobody's out there kind of maybe communicating back. The reality is it's incumbent on you to share those gifts. It's to share that energy and that light that you bring to the table. Because ultimately that's going to translate into them coins.
Yes.
Resources, that kind of stuff. So
okay.
Honestly, just keep doing you and just trust.
Yes. Thank you.
You're on the right path, is what the cards are saying. Again, purely for entertainment purposes, I always have to state that because I don't want you to make some crazy decisions and then blame them for it. So I'm just people know. But it seems like you're on the right track.
I appreciate that.
So, Sheila, this has been a phenomenal time. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. And Deanna, thank you so much.
Let us know how we can continue to support you. And feel free, next time we have an episode coming out, let us know, and then we can absolutely share it and blast it with the network and make sure that we're in community with you in that space. So
absolutely. Likewise, because the kitchen is a platform for our people to get the information out. So likewise.
Awesome. Well, thank you
so much, Edgar.
Thank you to all of our viewers who were with us this evening. Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of a Latino Arts Festival, virtual live. We are nearing the end of our Arts Festival. I think on Wednesday we're going to do some final remarks and final celebrations around a successful month of events and bringing highlights to our community around the phenomenal artists that that we serve and that we are part of. So anyways, with that said, thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your evening.
Bye-bye.